Hey ghouls and gals, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor. In today's video, I have 5 cryptid slash monster horror book recommendations. I had a really fun time creating this list of recommendations for y'all, so let's go ahead and get into it. Here are 5 cryptid slash monster horror books that are just really good reads. So first of all, let's just quickly dive into the definition of what a cryptid is and what I'm kind of using it for in this context. So the dictionary, Oxford Language Dictionary, says a cryptid is an animal whose existence or survival is disputed or unsubstantiated, such as the Yeti or Bigfoot. And that leads us perfectly into the first book recommendation of this video, which would be Devolution, a first-hand account of the Rainier Sasquatch Massacre by Max Brooks. From the title, you can glean that this book is about Sasquatches or Bigfoot, and this is one that I would highly recommend you listening to on audio. It's such a fun and immersive experience. It has a full cast, including actress Judy Greer, and I just thought this really elevated the reading experience for me. This takes place right before, during, and after the explosion of Mount Rainier, and this follows a small, isolated scientific community that when the wreckage of this community is found after the eruption, people think it's just because of the volcanic eruption that there was so much destruction and chaos. However, as you start to dive back into the history, journals left behind, some very creepy and weird evidence, you start to uncover as the reader that things were happening before the eruption to this community, and it might be tied to some Bigfoot or Sasquatch activities. Just like this author's other book, World War Z, Devolution has kind of a found footagey sort of element, epistolary format, as we are getting writings and scientific journals entries from people kind of detailing the events of this eventual massacre and series of events. So if you are interested in a very engaging Bigfoot story, make sure to check this one out. Next up, going into the sort of undefined cryptid slash monster spaces, we have The Twisted Ones by Kingfisher. This is about a young woman who is tasked with clearing out her dead grandmother's home in very rural North Carolina. She takes her dog and is sifting through all of this information when she starts to get a lot of bad feelings about the place, about the location, about the neighbors, and most especially about the woods surrounding her grandmother's house. As she starts putting together some pieces, some writings of her grandmother's that make absolutely no sense, our protagonist takes her dog into the woods, starts exploring, and starts finding some very bizarre, creepy things in the woods. And that's all I'm gonna give about this one. The mystery and what exactly is going on in these woods is very chilling. This was my very first Kingfisher, and I think now she gets a lot of focus on her fantasy works, but I really love her horror, and in particular, I love this horror. It doesn't have anything to deal with witches, but it does have like a very Blair witchy sort of atmosphere at times. Definitely evokes all of the folk tales of if you see something super weird in the woods, you hear something weird, don't go after it, go home. And of course, our protagonist does no such thing, and that's where the story really kicks off. So if you're looking for some mysterious monsters, some mysterious creatures, and just a very engaging, creepy atmosphere in the North Carolina woods, then go ahead and check this one out. My next book recommendation is Mongrels by Stephen Graham Jones, and you might be able to guess based on the title or the cover of this one that we are focusing on werewolves in this book. And in particular, we are focusing on a very young protagonist. It's a coming of age story that really takes those coming of age elements and then also the werewolf mythology and really blends them together in a very satisfying way. We're following our protagonist. He lives with his aunt and uncle, and they are on the move. They have to constantly move from place to place to place because his family is a bunch of werewolves, and our protagonist has not gotten his werewolfy powers yet, and he is just desperately hoping, desperately wanting, even though everyone in his family is saying this is a curse, this is a family curse, you don't want it, be glad you don't have it. He desperately hopes to become a werewolf himself. So I really really enjoyed this one. I think this is an underrated Stephen Graham Jones novel, and I really loved the way in which he used the werewolf as an allegory for what it feels like to be a Native American growing up in America today. That sense of displacement, that sense of being something very native to the world in which you inhabit, and finding yourself increasingly pushed further and further away to the edges of society. I thought that was done really well in this book. So I really enjoyed this werewolfy sort of narrative. I also think it's a very straightforward Stephen Graham Jones book. I think a lot of his books get very experimental with the way he tells his stories, and this just feels like a very classic coming of age story. And I really enjoyed the way that he took the coming of age story and made it a werewolf story as well. So if you are interested in a werewolfy story that does have a lot of heart but does have some very fast-paced, heart-pounding moments as well, then you've got to pick up Mongrels. The next two book recommendations, we're moving more into gothic horror, and the next book that I have for y'all is Our Hideous Progeny by C.E. McGill. And this one we are focusing on this is a Frankenstein reimagining story, but instead of a man, it's a plesiosaur that is getting reincarnated, resurrected into life. So this book takes place in 1850s London. We are following Mary, who is the grand niece of Victor Frankenstein, and all she knows about her relative is that he disappeared in the Arctic. He was a scientist and he had some very interesting experiments going on. She's also a scientist herself. Her and her husband are both paleontologists, her husband more so than her because of the restrictions of the time. But once she gets her hands on the journals and the scientific research of her relative, she starts seeing what he was doing in terms of resurrecting humans back from the dead. And because she is someone who really loves paleontology and dinosaurs, she decides she wants to try her hand at the story of creation, but with a beast instead of a man. I had a really fun time with this one. It's very hard for me to find a Frankenstein reimagining that captures what exactly I love about the original, and I think this one has been the closest in doing so, in capturing just what I loved about the original Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So this is also, you know, for the dinosaur lovers, because we can consider, I feel like, in the horror space, dinosaurs as a creature horror in and of themselves. So if you are interested in that, this is a gothic historical, and we also follow Mary. We follow her as she does all of these experiments, but also kind of wrestles with the conventions of the time and wanting to be a paleontologist, wanting to be a scientist, and the world keeps telling her no because she is a woman. So if you are interested in those dual themes here, then I think you would really like Our Hideous Progeny. And then last but not least, we have The Black Hunger by Nicholas Pullen, and this one just has one of the most striking covers that I've ever seen. I really love it. This one also, I would say, is very gothic. It's epistolary. It's a story within a story a lot of times, and like the Twisted Ones, this is one where the cryptid slash creature elements I'm going to leave a little vague. This one gives you a lot of answers as you dive into this story, but it's definitely an interesting mystery figuring out what exactly these very dark creatures are. This is such an ambitious story and very unique as well. This is a true gothic. It's going to be very long, very drawn out. It very much evokes classics in the way that this was written, so keep that in mind when you pick it up. This is just, it's very slow going, very epistolary, but I think that works perfectly for this story. So the framing story is we are following main protagonist John Sackville, and at the beginning of this book, he is in a jail cell. He is awaiting his imminent death, and he feels like he's backed up into a corner. He has no choice but to explain his story and how he got here, and it is a story of expedition and adventure, traveling across the globe to hunt down the source of the titular Black Hunger and the myriad of monstrous men and monstrous creatures that he experienced along his journey. This one takes place in colonial imperialist list. Britain starts there. We have our protagonist moving to India, where they're there for a period of time, and then their adventures take them to Siberia, Tibet. So it is a very, very ambitious novel, a lot of different aspects thrown in. My favorite part of this one was actually the story within the story, but I thought the ideas behind this were just so unique and intense. It's very clear that the author did so much research into different religious systems and the history during the time. This is a very heavily historical novel, but the creature horror, the monster horror in this one was just perfect. There is a series of events that really does feel like Jonathan Harker at Dracula's Castle. I thought this book did a great job of capturing that traditional Gothic atmosphere, and the monsters are truly monsters and truly monstrous, both the men encountered and the actual creatures themselves. So if you are interested in a Gothic epistolary story that really does feel like a classic in the way it is written, it almost has an Indiana Jones style, but just in the way where it's a historical mystery with some mysticism involved. I think that this would be a really great book for everyone to check out. I think of all of the recommendations on my list, I think this is the one that has the least amount of reviews and ratings, so I think it's the most obscure, and I think it deserves a little more love than it gets. So there you have it. Those are 5 cryptid/monster horror book recommendations. Let me know if you are interested in reading any of these books, and let me know if you would like a part 2 to this recommendation list. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my content. Stay safe, stay spooky, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye!